I got a bunch of notes I've been taking in that. And Jeffrey, I'll start with you, and I know you just finished, but I'm a young person out there. I'm sitting, I'm listening, and I'm thinking, is this a bunch of nonsense? Or, we have to be here because the teacher made us come. I've been there, gang. And that, but it isn't. I think that there's an awful lot of good stuff has been put here, but what is the one thing, and I'll ask each of this, that you can, the one thing you'd tell these young, if you walk out of here, just this one thing I want you to think of?
I guess my answer it's a little unusual, but it's expect the unexpected, and you can do all you can to prepare yourself for the career you think you're going to go into, but I know so many of my colleagues and people I went to school with and friends who are doing things completely different from what they had planned, or even if they are doing what they planned, they are going at it from a completely different direction than they expected. I have my roommate from college, went to law school. He's now a venture capitalist. I have a roommate who is got his MD PhD at Duke, and now he's just a general practitioner, not a researcher. So I think really when it comes to thinking about your own future, it's to prepare yourself to be flexible and to be open-minded to opportunities as they come along, and just make sure you're in a position that if the right opportunity comes along, you can take it and see where it goes.
Multi-majors?
One of my key areas of research is what's called interdisciplinary research. What's the nature of research that's going on at the intersection of biology and physics and engineering, for example. I think that people who can speak more than one language of knowledge, whether that means you're good in psychology and biology, or you're good in mechanical engineering and software programming, you're definitely going to have a leg up. You don't have to be the best at one or the other. The fact that you can combine and integrate and translate across multiple disciplines is a huge advantage in the marketplace today. And even in a recessionary economy, I can tell you there are job openings there that are going unfilled because we don't have people with that capability.
Randy?
Lou, thank you. The teacher from Spruce Creek, who's a University of Evansville Purple Ace, would you stand up if you're in the audience, please? All right. The point I want to make is that this is a very small world that we live in. It is not 6 degrees of separation, with all due respect, Kevin Bacon. It's like 1 degree, okay? And the messages I believe you've heard today, no matter what your field, I have a bachelor's degree from a small liberal arts university in southern Indiana, Methodist supported, University of Evansville. The observation I'm making to you is, look around you today, look at the people that you're relating with today, and recognize you're going to come back and connect with them or a mutual situation that will pay dividends. We had a great conversation. Probably the only 2 Purple Aces in the audience here. But my point is pretty simple. Whether you've got a background in business because of your education or because of your family experience, think about ending up running a manufacturing clean room, taking it from a full engineering test bed to full manufacturing in a little company like AT&T, all because I turned down a promotion to headquarters, because my wife of 47 years, the better business degree than I have, while I was struggling at AT&T, she was working as the executive assistant to the vice chair of the board of Eli Lilly and Company. She was the president of the sorority association at our university, and the list goes on. I made a decision that I married up, there's no question about it, and we were not going to New Jersey. In fact, I turned down 2 jobs in New Jersey. Best thing I ever did, because I ended up in a clean room as my penalty for turning down a promotion to headquarters. So my point is, you're going to have, what was the number, 7 or 8 different jobs? I think it's at least that. I had 4, but one with one company for 31 years where I had 15 different jobs within that company. So be versatile, start building your network, make a personal note of who you're close to now, because in many cases you'll still be close to them 30 years from now and you'll still be working with them. So thanks, Lou. I hope that gets to the point of your question.
Leslie?
Thank you. My college roommate once told me, your career is whatever you leverage yourself into, and that has turned out to be true for me and for most of my colleagues from Duke. So get an education, but also be aware of your own skills and your own ability to contribute to not only the global economy, but your local economy as well.
Frank?
I'm going to go a little softer and give you more of a philosophical response. In my mind, the answer is to be committed. And it's to work hard at whatever you do, whether it's a sport or any job opportunity that comes along. And you will find yourself moving toward opportunity. The other half of that equation is to do what you enjoy, work at what you enjoy, know what it is that really turns you on, and try to pursue that. It really does pay off if you're enjoying what you're doing and you're committed. You'll be successful in it, and it really does matter in the long run.
Lou? Okay, I'll answer that. Work backwards. One of the things that I've tried to do, and I still don't know what I want to do, but I'm working on it, is I decided as a young person coming back home to Florida who'd never gone to a political meeting, I decided I wanted to be a U.S. congressperson. And so I said, okay, I have no money, nobody knows me, I've never run for anything, I'm a wrong party to be running around here, how would I do it? So set out and tried to figure what things we were going to do to get there. And basically it was to go to 30,000 doors on foot for 13 months and do it that way. But I had, that was plan A, and there was plan B, which was to pray that money would come or you hit a lottery ticket, which we never did. I think we spent $150,000 in 3 races. Today, that doesn't even get you in the ball game. And that, so think backwards at what you're going to do. And for instance, as you grow up and you look out for things to do and meet people, because networking is really key. You want to maybe belong to a club or do something, but don't belong to a club because you want to belong to a club. Belong to the club because you really believe in it, it can do some good, and frankly, someday you want to be president of it. I mean, that's the mindset you have to have. And when you're working with people and you're doing these things, even now, do the little things. It's really, really important. It's funny, I answer my own phone. I always have answered my own phone. When I do it, a lot of people think, well, no, we want to speak the Congress. I said, that's me. That's what's left of it. I'm here. And do that. If somebody does something, when you write them, the Internet's fine, but it isn't personal. Take a little bit of time. If some teacher or somebody's helped you, just write a little note. Gee, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. Do it in your own handwriting and take the time to do it. Don't forget to say thank you. There's nothing wrong with that. Talk to people as you go along. Don't be too important to talk to somebody else. It's amazing how that works with it. I get up to Washington once in a while, and people still talk to me because I talk to them. I played ball up there. My oldest daughter, who's here, Julie, and number 2 daughter, we were up in Washington, and because they were so young when I got there, they didn't really know a lot of the people in that. And I walked past the center door of the Congress and everything, and there's 3 doors basically, and the doorman saw me. And he said, Congressman, it's great to have you back. And inside I'm thinking, isn't this great? My daughters now who didn't see it, somebody's recognized me, for the legislative work I did. And he went on, made it even better. He said, boy, we really miss you. And my head now is about 8 sizes too big and that. And I said, yeah, well, that's, good, and everything. And he said, yeah, we haven't had a shortstop like you since you left. Doesn't make any difference as long as something like that. But it's a personal world. I guess what I'm trying to say, it is a very personal world, and it's amazing how things you do just because you're not for anything, you're doing them because it's the right thing to do, come back and really help down the line. That you can build a bank account, if you will, that way over a lifetime. Do you agree with me? Anybody?
I'm going to add the small world department item. You attach yourself to very creative people. Don't make the assumption that you are, and don't make the assumption that you got it all. You need to find very creative people and be part of them. The one that we share in unison big black tie event. I mean, really dressed to the nines, everyone. Guess what we had for dinner? Hot dogs and baked beans. Nobody knew it. Somebody thought it was cube steak. It was tube steak. Okay? And it was Jeannie Austin. She worked for me at AT&T. She was the chair of the party for the state. But that's the kind of creativity that helped raise money. She said, we're here for a fundraiser. We're not, you can look pretty, but we're going to have hot dogs and we're going to raise some money. So find those creative folks that you'd like to be part of and enjoy their creativity.
And we'll take questions in a minute. Is there anything basically in terms of the business world and your personal experiences in that turn you off, that right away a red flag goes up or just turns you off, or you say, Who wants to take the first shot at that?
Sure, I think it goes back to what we just heard, is that people who are inconsiderate. And there's a tendency, and it's not just business, it's government, it's every institution you go to, that there are people who become very self-centered and they think that their job is the most important and that their concerns take precedence over yours. I would definitely caution people against finding themselves in that position, because if you show just a little bit of consideration and realize that there's a lot to be gained by cooperating and being collaborative, then you'll probably end up going a lot farther. I was at a speech recently by somebody who talked about this concept of coopetition, which is how you can compete with other people and cooperate with them at the same time in different domains. And that's, I think, a really key thing, is learning that there is value in being cooperative, even if you don't like somebody at first.
407-708-4630. Repeating, area code 407-708-4630. That's my private line. It comes into my office. Like Lou, I take great pride in answering my own phone. It's just something that I grew up with. 31 years at AT&T, maybe it's just bored into you. The one thing that I really hate is people who do not return phone calls.
Yeah.
Just makes me totally...
Or when you call and they say, who is calling? And not normally, but just every once in a while, I haven't had my cup of coffee or something, I'll say, does it make a difference? What's the difference here to make? It's sort of an insult. You say, who do you think is calling? And especially when they tell them and then they won't put you through. That really irritates you. Go on. Leslie?
Okay, well, what has turned me off in many a business environment is people's first impressions. I am very well educated, but I'm also a Southern belle. So the story I tell is I went for a job interview as a professor at Harvard, and I gave a seminar, a very complicated seminar about a protein called talin. And every time I said talin, everybody in the audience burst into laughter. And these were Harvard professors. And I thought, I was very embarrassed. I thought, oh, this must be the worst scientific research in the world. No, they were laughing at my accent. Needless to say, I chose not to go to Harvard, but that's the kind of attitude that does turn me off. So don't ever do that. Don't make first impressions. Just because somebody is from New Orleans, Louisiana, doesn't mean they're stupid. They can contribute just as much.
I'll just observe that I think you're hearing consistency right down the line about human qualities and being sensitive to others, being considerate. There is something out there as too much ego. You have to be self-confident, but too much ego, usually in a work environment, means that you're not able to work in a team context, and you can get one hell of a lot accomplished if you don't care so much about who gets the credit. The people involved in looking at the organization will know. So figure out how to work with others, and that's true whether you're dealing with clients or your fellow workers.
If I can throw in real-world case study, is there's a company called Corning. They make all kinds of materials and things of that nature. They are a company that has probably the most joint ventures of almost any company in the world. They're very successful at joint ventures because they always put their name second with their partner. Owens Corning, for example. And they think, let the other guy take credit and we'll still come out okay.
Well, that's really a good point. I was sitting here politically and thinking about all the chaos we have in the country now, where we don't have bipartisanship. We'll never have bipartisanship till we have civility. And that means that Jeffrey and I can disagree very deeply on something and have very strong views, and not back off those views, but that doesn't mean I put a label on him of, you know, a right-wing extremist or a limousine liberal, whatever it is. We discuss it. We don't have that, and that's really one of the great problems. And the other thing that you put your finger on in Congress, I was in the minority all those years, even though I was in the leadership, but I got a lot of legislation through. That was because people worked together, and secondly, I got a lot of legislation through because I'd go to the Democratic chairman and say, hey, this is a good idea, would you put the bill in, you know, and if you, I'll co-sponsor it, but it's your bill if you want to do it. And it's amazing how that works. You know, it really does. It's those kind of things that make a difference, I think, in a profession. Frank, if you were, I'm very serious about this, you've been very successful. What is it has made you successful?
I think, I don't know that I could attribute to any one thing. I certainly have been in the right place at the right time and had opportunities. Some of that is self-created. I was a math major. I was recruited to a public accounting firm. I became a partner in a public accounting firm. I've never had an accounting course. So I worked on the other side of the house, which played to the consulting side. And I think because I had some intuitive skills and I had an analytical background, I was able to look for the heart of the problem. Usually in the consulting world, whenever there's a problem, if you look under the rock, there's a personality at the heart of it. There are all kinds of pejorative terms for that personality, but you can usually get to the heart of the matter. You're looking at some process or some other thing. I'm deviating. I think the success factor, if anything, was the ability to deal with people in a way that you were able to spot what's wrong, you're intuitive, and you pay attention to other people, and then provide counsel in a framework that helps build the organization. And that's true whether you're doing an analytical review of a problem or you're dealing with a human issue being brought to you. I think human skills are as important to develop as any kind of analytical skills you might develop.
Leslie, you've run businesses, and your husband has. You're not only a wonderful lady from New Orleans, but you're tough, and you've survived in a tough world. You've been an entrepreneur, and that. So, I mean, how did you do it?
I consider my career a work in progress, and I still consider myself not quite as successful as I could be, and I think my husband feels the same way. We both continue to strive, but not just in our career, but also in the community as well. It's a community. It's a matter of collaboration, not just between two careers and a career and an institute, but you go forward in any job. Collaboration is key, and continuing to work together, I think, is.
Well, you have high standards. What happens when you don't hit what you want?
Go out and do it again. Try again. Learn from failure.
For those of you going to end up running companies, and there's a ton of you in this room that will, whether it's a large or a small one, remember something that was shared with me years ago by a gentleman who was the assistant plant manager of the Whirlpool plant in Evansville, who went on to become the CEO of Whirlpool Corporation, John Platts. You always hire people that are smarter than you. You got to really stop and think about that. Always hire people, no matter. I spent years at AT&T and running a legal organization, running a labor relations organization, HR, manufacturing, etc. And I think the key to success is to recognize that your ability to form teamwork, form a team, and give them some direction, and then let them do it. I hired a manager into AT&T without a college degree on her promise that she would get that college degree. To her credit, she not only got the college degree at UCF, she got a master's, and then obviously came to meet with me and said, na, 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 na. Okay? But she proved the point, okay? Very sharp lady. She ends up now working for Hewlett-Packard in an executive position. Be proud of those things. Find those folks that you want to be associated with, and don't be afraid to look for talent that's literally better than you are. Trust me, you will succeed.
How about out there? We're just trying to talk about some practical stuff. I know we've been covered a lot of ground, but how about these are incredibly successful people. How about some questions?
This question was more directed to you, Congressman Frey. My question to you is, Do you find it easier now that you're not in Congress to to speak out about issues like the space program? Is it
No.
easier? No.
No.
Why not?
I was total neophyte when I ran. I was running against really nice people that were older and been state senators and all this stuff and I had to learn how to speak without notes or anything. I had to do a lot more work because everybody knew I didn't know anything about it, and I tried, at least because I wasn't talking with notes, to let people think I understood everything, or at least part of it. And when I got elected, no one had helped me. So I didn't know anything of the Republican Party. I certainly didn't know anything of the Democratic Party, but I had sort of done it, without any help of any organizations or anything. And when I got to the Congress, and I was the youngest one elected that time, I found out that, frankly, the best way for me to operate was to think about stuff and everything and, tell people what I thought. Sometimes I was in the vast minority, like the 18-year-old vote. A few of us in Congress wrote that during Vietnam and all that coming out of it. And, of course, there was, in this district, it was 80-20 against that bill. And everybody'd say to me, how could you be for that bill when 80% of the people who are in your district are against it? I say, well, it's pretty simple. I think you ought to be able to, if you're going to get shot, you ought to be able to vote. It seemed to me a fairly reasonable concept in that. And I'm no fool. I would go talk to people, and I'd talk to the civic clubs and all these things. I'd bring it up because I knew it was going to come up anyway, and I'd tell people what I thought. And people would say, well, don't agree with him on this, but at least he told me what he believes, and he's doing okay in these other things, so we'll give him a pass. So I learned on these things to think them over and everything, but then take a position. And I'm not going to get in here because it's too late in the day, but take abortion. I mean, that issue, you're not going to change anybody's position on it, so you might as well tell people what you think and go on. And all these people that jump around, I was for the bill before I was against the bill, that I'm for it on that. I think that, frankly, isn't the right thing to do, and I think it's stupid politics. Last question.
Yes. For all of you, I know that you guys say that it's important to enter the workforce and be courteous and exercise all these practices to do good in the workforce. But there are some people who actually do what they want and do what they love, and companies actually close their doors just because they don't have enough experience to them. So how exactly do you see that we can obtain that experience if none of the people will actually open the doors to new people to enter the workforce?
Frank, we'll start with you at the end. We've been...
No, that's okay. I would say it's a little like love. Somewhere out there's a Mr. Right.
I knew he'd answer.
I think that if you've got skills, and if it hasn't worked in Company A, you're going to find Company B out there. It might not be in the area you're in, but be persistent. It might not be in the geographic area you're in, but go where the market is. That's another thing that, we've talked all day about business, but what makes business successful? It is people, but more than anything else, it's market. And when a company is closing its doors to you, either they're not recognizing the skills that you've got, or they don't have the business. Go where the market is, and your skills will find a way to rise to the surface.
Leslie?
Sure, I would say be creative. Don't just limit yourself to the industry or the market that you know. Look at your own skills and see where you might be able to contribute and provide yourself with a little bit of outside opportunity, as well as providing an employer with your skills, which might not be common for that particular new industry.
I think what you've described is real world, and it's going to happen. And you just have to be flexible to recognize it. I I turned down a transfer, I know it's sounding repetitive here, but I turned a transfer to Philadelphia with a major insurance company. Again, because that beautiful redhead didn't want to go to Philadelphia. It took me about 3 months, including going with a headhunter firm with a decent baccalaureate. Ended up running with that gentleman that ran that firm. He was president. I was vice president of Indianapolis JCs. We struck up a friendship, but he didn't find me a job. I ended up walking in the door at an AT&T facility, found out that there was an opening, and the gentleman who came to interview me had graduated from the same high school in Evansville, Indiana that I'd graduated from. So those connections are going to happen. Expect them to, but it may not happen the first time. So if you've knocked on a door and they didn't like your skill set, don't take it personal. Go find a better door. You'll find one. I really believe you will.
I would definitely say you need to make your own experience and think about what you've done and what your life is, and you may find that you have experience that you don't really know, you didn't ever really tell anybody in the past. You worked for a volunteer organization as an organizer, and that gives you experience. You worked as a server in a restaurant, and that gave you a certain kind of organizational or interpersonal teamwork experience that you can draw on. A real-world example is actually, I went through a job transition. I worked for the same company for many years, was trying to find a new job, and of course, the employers were asking me for references. Well, the only people who I could really use as references were people at my existing job who I didn't tell I was leaving. So I had my church minister, my pastor, write a recommendation for me, because she had seen me speak in public. I was a lector in the church. She had seen me do organizational planning because I did the strategic plan for the church organization. And lo and behold, the employer of my choice said that was a great example of the experience that you had. And she was a great reference for me. So think a little bit outside the box, and there are ways you can kind of, again, take control of your own destiny and reframe what you've done in other domains and make them relevant to what you're trying to do.
I think one of the things in your thinking and the hardest thing I think in life is to be honest with yourself. And if you're going to go to another job or something, and I put down a plus or minus and put the different things. It's really hard to be totally honest about yourself and look at it. It's apparently a lot easier for people outside to do it. I would not be all that upset about it happening. I think it's just part of what you're doing. I mean, it's like if you're going to play football, somebody's going to tackle you. Sooner or later you're going to get hit, and sometimes harder than the other. So that's just part of the process. So don't fall apart. Just suck it up. Go on to the next thing. And I'll tell you the best thing, if you really want to do something, join somebody's campaign and try and raise money. I mean, if you want to get rejection, you're sure going to get that. But we don't reject anybody here. We're awful happy that you took the time and everything to come here, and you've honored us by your presence.
You can work hard and be intense, and especially if it's something that you have a passion for, then you don't have to worry about feeling overworked, because working because you want to is the best form of play.
I struggled to make it through a master's course in stat at Butler University. Without a project leader, I wouldn't have made it through, but with a project leader, I did. I would say from my experience in working with economic development organizations across 23 counties, there's about 40 of them, with working with workforce boards across the 23 counties, and there's 10 of those, 14 community colleges, 3 universities that are part of our team. The people that I interrelate with, I'm proud to say, I'm the dumbest one in the group. They are all just brilliant at what they do. But they come together to help me run the corridor as volunteers. And I don't know one of them that's not working at least 60, maybe 70 hours a week, because they're passionate about, to pick up, Jeffrey, on your comment, they're passionate about what they're doing. Okay? So for those in the audience that have hair my color, I would suggest you're probably doing the same thing, or you wouldn't be here. You'd be doing something else. So I think I second it. I believe you have to do both. I think you'll witness that both are great if you really enjoy what you're doing. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, find something else.
So it reminds me of the argument I always had with my husband when we worked in the same company. We had labs adjoining. And I plan experiments a day in advance or 2 days in advance, get all the equipment lined up and the solutions made, and then do my experiment. Takes 1 or 2 days. Okay. He goes in and he just guts through it all. Nothing's ready. He'll stop the experiment and make it. So we always had this argument. Why don't you just plan ahead? Well, why don't you just go do it? It's a matter of just doing what you love the way you're best able to do it. That's all I can say.
I'll just close with the same theme. It's clearly you have to do both, work hard and smart, but you can also do a lot through others, so they may be able to work in many cases harder than you, and they may be smarter than you, so it goes back to teamwork.
Thank you very much.
Woo-hoo!